Hello everyone, Equipment War here, and welcome to my build guide for my Ice Witch. This character is a lot of fun to play, have good survivability, decent clear speed, and can just freeze lock enemies indefinitely. So I gotta go on my skill points, gear, and passive skill tree. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me in the comments. So let's get started. So let's take a look at my passive skill tree, the games, my Ascendancy skill tree, and the gear I'm using. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me in comments. And all the specification and the link to the build guide and the link to the build will be in the description. So let's get started. Gonna start by going my passive skill tree. I took over the spell damage here to went up to Occultist Dominion. I also took all of this energy shield here to get to Deep Wisdom. When you've done that, I recommend going for Annihilation for more damage when you're leveling up. And then went this way to get to Cruel Perception and Deep Thoughts. Don't go this way for later in the game. You can take this route here to get Mental Rapidity if you want. This fuel I'm using, it is energy from within. It converts all life into energy shield instead. As you can see, Cruel Perception give me energy shield now. And this one also, and this life here increase my energy shield as well. And even this Heart and Soul, Mana and Life, and this Mana and Life is now energy shield thanks to energy from within. Moving on, I went all this way here to take Nimbus. I went up here to take Snowforge to increase my damage when I'm leveling up. One side note, when I'm leveling up this character, I really recommending using something like life. Try to get life on your gear when you're leveling up, makes your leveling process even easier. I took Throat Seeker because this is a heavily crit based build, so all crit multiplier you can get is a really nice thing. And then I went down here. I took Growth and Decay, which I actually now converted into giving me a new shield instead of life regen. So I actually have a new shield regen. I went down here, I took Cold-Hearted Calculation, I took Nullification and Sniper. I took Assassination and Trickstery. After that I went up here to take this whole spell Critical Strike multiplier and crit chance wheel here. And after that I pretty much took Chaos Inoculation. I was about level 60. I took Infused Shield, and then I took Ghost River. Then I went to this area here. I took Unnatural Calm, this whole energy shield tree here. I took Mental Rapidity for even more cast speed. And finally I went down here to take Stormweaver and Seal of Oath. A complete skill tree going to be in the description. So moving on, I'm gonna show my Ascendancy skill tree. I have ascended 2 times. And I took Wicked Ward, which are a really nice buff to your energy shield. And I took Vile Bastion, a really powerful node which actually give you life regen, mana regen. What I'm saying, 0.5% of your energy shield is regen per second for each enemy you killed recently. So as long as you're killing a bunch of enemies, you will pretty much have, if not something one hit you, you will be in really good shape and be a really tanky character. When I send the last time, I'm probably going to take Forbidden Power, so I can and also get this Critical Strike chance and increase energy shield. So really powerful. So let's take a look at the gear I'm using. I'm using this rare Spell Dagger here, which are really powerful. Sorry guys, wait a second. I'm using a dagger because I want as high crit chance for spell as possible. But you can use a wand as well if you get the right stats on it. Try to get a wand or a dagger which are as high spell crit chance as possible, as high increased spell damage as possible, as high global critical strike multiplier as possible, or just a global critical strike multiplier for spell. If you can, try to get some cast speed on it as well. Moving on, I'm using this helmet here, which is a really powerful helmet. Have really nice energy shield and give you a good amount of resistance. And that's what you're gonna aim for when you try to get your helmet. And one side note, if you want, you can actually get a helmet which have split energy shield and armor. Try to get as high armor and energy shield as possible and resistance on it. Moving on, I'm using Eye of Kayula, which makes me immune to stuns. So because you're using Chaos Inoculation, you will it's really easy to get stun locked because you just have 1 life, and stun are calculated from the life. And even if you have a ton of energy shield, as I have, you will still really easy get stun locked if you're not careful. So I'm really recommending this amulet here. I'm using this Spirit Shield, which give me a really good amount of crit chance for spells. It have a pretty nice energy shield as well. But trying to get a Spirit Shield which have as high energy shield and as high increased spell damage and as high crit chance for spells as possible. If you can get some energy shield, some resistance on it, that's even better. I'm using Dream Fragments, a really cheap and powerful ring. It makes that you can't get frozen anymore, and even have a really nice mana regeneration rate and really nice increase to your maximum mana, and even gives some cold resist. It's a very powerful ring, and it's not an expensive ring either. I'm using this armor here. You can use an armor which give a split energy shield and armor, and it's a pretty standard, pretty powerful armor. Try to get as high energy shield as possible as usual, and if you can, try to get some resistance on it as possible, if you can. I'm just using this rare ring here. It's a really nice resistance, and it has some crit chance, and I also have some a small mod of increased energy shield. I'm using Rainbow Stripes, which are pretty cheap boots, and they're really powerful. They are in like 2 versions. This version gives me a ton of mana, and it gives me some small amount of resistance, pretty decent movement speed, pretty decent boots overall. But on another version which give a 20 to all element resistance, but lower in mana. I'm using a Series Inventation, a pretty cheap belt, the cold version, so it increases my cold damage. It even give me, so my cold damage have a leech, which are pretty nice. But it even, but because it is the cold version, it doesn't give me any cold resistance. But it's a really powerful belt, and I'm really recommending it. And finally, I'm using Malagor's Virtuary, I think they are pronounced. It is not a must-have. You can actually use Facebreaker if you want, because they have really high critical strike multiplier, but you're going to have a little bit lower crit chance. And you can even use some rare gloves, which give you a new shield and preferably armor, but try to get us some gloves with a new shield. I'm using these gloves for a really good crit chance and a critical multiplier, and even give me some dexterity, which are pretty nice. And that's pretty much my gear. If you have any questions about my gear, feel free to ask me in the comments. And by the way, I'm using an armor flask, a diamond flask, quicksilver flask. I also have a topaz flask, and another armor flask. They are not rolled or anything, it's nothing special with them, just want to show them. And I'm actually gonna tell one thing before I move on. I almost forgot it. The bandits I helped in normal, I helped none of them. I just killed every one of them and took their passive skill points. In cruel, I helped Alira for the 5% to cast speed, and then in merciless, I just killed all of them. So I killed all of them 2 times, and I helped them in cruel, and I helped Alira in cruel. So let's take a look at the gems I'm using. I can start with my main setup. This build is really good on using Ice Spear as well. But the spell I'm using, it is Freezing Pulse, and I'm gonna try to have it in the description so you can see the setups I'm using. I'm using Freezing Pulse, which are the one I'm using the most, and you can, as I said, you can even use Ice Spear if you want. And Ice Spear, it is supported by Spell Echo. And less multiple projectiles. I actually used to change this a lot. I sometimes use Hypothermia. You can even use faster projectiles. You can hit enemy further away. I sometimes use Cold Penetration, especially against bosses. I used to swap out for this one, so I can deal more damage to enemy with high resistance. And finally, I'm using Ice Bite sometimes, because it gives you a really good chance to get frenzy charges, which increases your damage and cast speed. And even have a nice 50% chance to freeze enemies. So it's just to choose what you want to use, and all of these 5 gems here are really helpful in this build. But against many enemies are using lesser multi-projectiles. You can use greater multi-projectiles if you want. And then it is supported by life leech, so I get life back when I'm killing enemies. I can maybe drop this one because I have Vile Bastion, which give me life and new shield when I'm killing enemies. So I can drop this one, but I really like to have it because it makes you so much more tanky. And finally, I'm using increased critical strikes. This one get buffed in the Ascendancy, so I now have actually increases the critical strike chance by %, and it have made this gem here a truly powerful gem. It increases the crit chance by an unimaginable amount. So it's a very powerful gem right now, and it makes me crit chance really high. If I take this away, you can see how much my crit chance is lowering. I now have 46 in crit chance. And if I'm using this one, I have 66 in crit chance, and without any power charges and all of that. So it's a very powerful gem, and I really recommend using it because this one allows you to just perma-freeze enemies and just keep casting on them to the die, and they can't do anything to stop you. It makes it even more powerful in PvP because it's a pretty good PvP build as well. If you can get close to the enemies and not die to all of the bow characters everywhere. Moving on, I actually have a Summon Chaos Golem. I don't really remember what was the setup for it. I'm sorry, I can't find it right now. There it was. Summon Chaos Golem. It is supported by just minion life because I wanted to survive longer, and it gave me a small amount of damage reduction against physical attacks, which are pretty nice. And you can use summon. Alright, I forgot the name for that now. I'm sorry. I'm going to have summon Stone Golem, the new Stone Golem. I'm sorry, I forget the name. Another setup I'm using, which are a movement setup, which are Lightning Warp. And it is supported by faster casting and less duration. Lightning Warp is really great for getting out of bad situations. You can see how fast I'm teleporting. And you really need faster casting on this one. And the less duration. Less duration makes a huge difference. And then I actually have a small curse setup if I want to use it, which are Ball Lightning. And it is supported by Assassin's Mark and Curse on Hit and faster casting. So when I cast this Ball Lightning on an enemy, actually the Ball Lightning do quite a bit of damage in itself, so you can actually kill enemies with it if you want. But I'm using it for cursing enemies with Assassin's Mark, so makes them take even more damage from critical, and even makes them make me get some mana back when I'm killing them, and give me some power charges. They're pretty powerful setups, and I'm really recommending it. And the auras I'm using Discipline for even more unusual, which actually makes a huge difference. I have a Frostbite leveling up. This is not an aura, by the way. I'm using Clarity because spells are pretty mana hungry. And I'm using Hail of Ice because when I'm killing an enemy, they will just explode and it will hurt the enemies around them. And that's pretty much my skill setup. If you have any questions about what I've said, or if you not understand something, please let me know. And I thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.